So I'm spending roughly the last 20 minutes. Time waste. This is what my latest book is about. Don't waste time and money repeatedly trying to persuade a rejecter or time waster to change their mind and engage in sexual relations with you. That's just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time. What is a time waster? I briefly said yesterday, I'll re-emphasize it. Time waster is pretty much the opposite of pretender. Me and actually Sophie, who was here earlier, we kind of got into a little lighthearted debate about this. Because she says she loves to flirt. And she says, so Alan, you're saying if I flirt with a guy, I'm wasting his time? She's like, flirting is just a natural part of life. And I said, here's what would determine whether you're a flirt or a time waster. If you've already made it clear that y'all ain't fucking, I wouldn't consider you wasting my time. I'm not gonna call a woman a time waster just because, say, she might be talking about a porno movie she watched and she's talking about sex. I consider a woman a time waster when I made it clear to her, and that's the key point. If you're being, this is why I'm not a fan of indirect, because if you're being vague and ambiguous about your intentions, then why shouldn't she be vague and ambiguous? If you're beating around the bush, why shouldn't she beat around the bush? You can't expect a woman to be straightforward if you yourself not even being straightforward. But when I would call a woman a time waster is that if I made it clear that I want to fuck, and instead of that woman either reciprocating my interests or rejecting my interests, she's trying to operate in the middle like, Alan, you so bad. Hey, baby, I don't know. Who knows, 6 months from now, I might feel different. See, that woman's a race for me. And I know other coaches might say, no, man, stick with that chick, you know. It's worth the 6 month wait. It ain't for me. It ain't for me. And that's why this is where I have bump heads with a lot of other dating coaches and philosophy. Because a lot of guys say you need to get to know a woman, you need to build rapport, you need to build emotional connection. I fucking agree with that. For me, it's all about what type of relationship you're looking for. If I'm looking for a long-term monogamous relationship, yes. I want to know a woman's character. I'm not leaving a woman alone in my apartment if I don't know about her character. She might just steal my shit. Matter of fact, James Emerald, who I brought up yesterday, he was a guy who spoke in Las Vegas. I really like this guy. But he said something. He's similar to me. He said, it's funny when people talk about they need to get to know each other, have sex. He said, no, you don't. He said, I get to know women for the periods of times I'm going to spend with them non-sexually. Because that's usually going to be the greater amount of time. And I said, I totally agree with that. He said, yeah. He said, I don't want to be around a woman non-sexually who bores me or irritates me. He said, I don't want to be on the couch watching TV with a woman who just either irritates the fuck out of me or bores the shit out of me. He said, so I want to get to know a woman for those non-sexual times. But I tell women and men all the time, I don't even need to know a woman's name to fuck her. I have fucked women without knowing their name. You see that in the movies sometimes where a couple wake up and say, now, what was your name again? I mean, that's real. I've done that. I've been like the grocery store. I told you about the infamous grocery store story. After she sucked my dick, I was like, okay, tell me your name again. Did you tell me your name? I don't know if I would say she didn't tell me, but I definitely didn't remember. So I asked her, I said, tell me your name again. But I don't need to know a woman's name. I don't need to know her background. Again, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a one-night stand, weekend fling, what the fuck you need to build an emotional connection, and why would you want to? To me, that's misleading and manipulative. If you build an emotional bond with them, they're gonna think you want something deeper, something long-lasting. I don't want any woman to feel like that. Matter of fact, even if I have started fucking a woman, and I kind of start getting vibes from her that she's starting to look at us as boyfriend, girlfriend, I'll cut that shit off. I did that like a couple years ago. I was fucking this woman, and initially she was saying she was down for casual sex. But then she started saying, hey, Alan, there's this formal event. I want you to be my escort. And Alan, there's this one event coming up. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're starting to talk about boyfriend, girlfriend shit. And she said, well, I mean, I do want to spend more quality time with you. I was like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Now, see, some guys would have just kept on fucking her, probably going to these events. But if I see it going in that direction and I know that's what I don't want, I'm not trying to play with any woman's emotions. Even if that might be hurtful to them at the time, but just about all those women will tell me later on, Alan, I respect you. Because you didn't try to lead me on. You didn't try to fuck with my emotions. But yeah, like this woman, once she started going that territory, I was like, nah, I'm not looking for the boyfriend-girlfriend shit. Because I know I'm going to be fucking other women. This is not specifically related to time wasters, but I always say this anytime I workshop. Never apologize for your sexuality. Never apologize. If, like, women sometimes will tell guys, oh, all you think about is sex, so? All you just want to do is get my pants, so? The biggest guy I like to quote of all people was a preacher. And you know, if a preacher says this, you know, preachers are all about usually don't have sex before marriage. This preacher one time in LA said, he said, God did not put man and woman on earth to be platonic friends. I was the loudest amen, and I was like, amen. He actually did a sermon where he was criticizing. He said, one thing I don't like about society nowadays is there's too many men and women that just want to get together and watch TV and be all these platonic friends. He said, God didn't put you on earth to just be hanging out as platonic friends. You need to be finding you a wife. I didn't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I don't always try to find a wife, but I agree with his that, you know, all that fucking platonic shit. I'll skip over that for the purpose of time. Well, I'm going to touch on this real quick. I give this definition of seduction because some guys think if they go to a club and say, invite a woman back to their place, and a woman says yes, and they end up fucking that woman, they say, yeah, man, I'm a master seducer. I seduced her. No, you didn't. If I say, tell me your first name again.
Mine?
Yeah. Mateos. If I say, hey man, what's this shit on my phone? Who had juice over here? What the fuck? But if I said, hey, you want to buy this phone for, I don't know, 100 euros? And you said, sure, yes. Did I sell you on this phone? Did I really use any salesmanship?
No.
I just offered you the phone and you said, yeah. That's what you learn in sales. Sales is if I was to say, hey, I want to sell you this phone for 100 euros, and you're like, I already got a phone. I'm like, yeah, but does your phone do this, that, and this? And you're like, well, not really, but, and I keep talking to you, you give me feedback, I keep talking to you, and then finally, I've persuaded you to go ahead and buy this phone. That's when I truly use salesmanship. And that's the same with seducing. I say that in my book, Who Said Again. I don't consider seducing a woman, you just saying again, hey, do you want to fuck? And the woman says, yes, let's go to your place. You just invited her to have sex and she agreed. I only consider myself, I only categorize me seducing a woman when a woman is giving me some degree of resistance, some degree of criticism. She basically, one part of her voice or mind was saying, no, I don't think I should do this. But because of the way I talk to her and use my persuasive charm, she ultimately says, yeah, I want you to fuck me, yeah. So, and that's why I say, if you're not overcome a woman, matter of fact, if you look up, I did research one time on the word seduce. Seduce is actually really a kind of a fucked up word. If you do the research like on its original meaning, seduce basically means, the formal term is to get somebody to do something kind of evil that totally goes against their morals, their values, their ethics. Like, for example, you normally wouldn't rob a bank, but I persuaded you to go ahead and rob a bank for some money. That's the formal definition of seduction, is when, you know, if I'm saying you want to eat chicken, I'm persuading you to eat beef, that's not the formal definition of seduction. It's me getting you to do something unsavory, like, again, that goes against your basic principles. I said this yesterday, rejection, leave her alone, resistant, become more. some big guys ask me, they say, how come when you are sexually straightforward with women, they do give you those negative reactions? Well, I would say the general answer is their social programming, but a related reason, a lot of women are socialized to believe that you should offer them something for their sexual companionship. Sometimes I respect them about that. Because a lot of guys, they just willing to give dick away for free. They're like, shit, here it is, take it. Women like, no, you gonna at least take me out to dinner or something. You gonna like at least, do this and do that. So if you're just kind of offering them dick in exchange for pussy, some women, that egotistically frustrates them. They're like, no. My pussy is worth more than that. There's my latest book. It's called The Possibility of Sex. And while I call it that, see, I knew about reciprocators, rejectors, and pretenders early on. Time wasters was probably the last one I was able to identify. And it's funny, I got to bring up that LSS forum one more time. There was a guy on the LSS forum who was just criticizing the idea of time wasters. He was saying, there's no time wasters. I never ran across any women. Then he had a business trip. I forget what he does, but I guess it takes some different countries. He wrote me about a month later. He said, Alan, mate. He said, I apologize. He said, well, I would still partially defend London women. He said, I haven't really met too many women in London. But he said, I was in your country, the States. Oh my God. He said at least half the women in the States are time wasters, manipulative time wasters. There's 4 types of time wasters I talk about in this book. The first one is what I just simply call the attention whore. Some women will flirt with guys, even in a sexually provocative manner, simply so you can give them flattering attention. They don't want to give you no pussy. I think a simple example of that, I'll be on Facebook, I've had female friends, they'll be posting pictures of their ass and a thong and their tits. I had this one woman when she was sending it to me in my inbox. I said, why the fuck you sending me this shit? I said, when we fucking? She said, I said, then why you sending me this shit? I don't want to see your ass if we're not fucking. A lot of women get off on that shit. They want you to say, oh, you got a nice L, you got nice tits. I only want to admire those women's bodies who I'm gonna fuck. Otherwise, I don't want to see your naked and half naked pictures. I don't want to see that shit. That's what a lot of women get off on. That's my definition of attention whore. There's a woman who's showing you her body parts and basically just trying to get you to flatter her. But she ain't trying to date you. She ain't trying to give you no pussy. That's when my kind of, for lack of a better word, asshole side comes out. When I see that woman just trying to get me to flatter her, I'll act like the biggest dick in the world. Biggest dick. I'll be like, get the fuck out. Dismiss yourself from me. I ain't trying to deal with that shit. Second one is the woman who wants what I call a personal entertainer. Like, and I'm sure Sasha's gotten this, when you have a comedic background, particularly, if I say so myself, I think I have a pretty good sense of humor. And there's been some women in my life that just wanted me to be in their company to make them laugh. But my attitude, as I got older and more one, I was like, you want me to make you laugh? They like, yeah. I'm like, how much you paying me? Excuse me? You're excused. Shit, Eddie Murphy is a millionaire because he makes motherfuckers laugh. Name a comedian. Anybody?
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor. He was a millionaire. Any professional comedian gets fucking paid to make people laugh. They don't be doing. Matter of fact, a comedian who just died, his name is Jonathan Winters. I remember reading this article. His wife said something interesting. She said, what's funny about my husband is when we're at family gatherings or just regular social functions, he's never funny. And the person interviewed him said, really? He said, no, his attitude is, that's my career. If I make people laugh for free, what would be their motivation to pay me? And that's how I am with people in general, particularly women. I'm like I went off on these 2 women one time. There was these 2 women a few years ago, invited me out. And I told them, I said, now if I'm coming out, which one of y'all mouths my dick gonna land in? Oh, Ellie, he's so silly. I said, no, I'm not trying to come out. I'm relaxed in my home. You guys want me to come out to a restaurant. And because I kind of predicted what was going to happen, but I gave in to my lesser voice and I went ahead. Sure enough, they had me there for like 2 hours and they just wanted me to tell these entertaining stories. But then when I was like, so when we going to go to your place, and and they were like, oh, Alan, I was like, wait a minute. You brought me out here literally to have me fucking entertain your ass? And they were like, damn, Alan, you're getting serious. But I told you, my dick side come out. They thought I was going to be laughing again. I said, you wasted my motherfucking time. I said, don't do that shit again. You'll be happy to hear from me again. Don't fucking waste my time. I hate people wasting my time, men or women. The third one is what I call the favor seeker. Similar to a gold digger, but not quite. A gold digger can be actually fucking you. Favor seeker is a woman. I always bring up this story. Anybody familiar with the Law and Order series in the U.S.? They have different shows, and one of them was Law and Order Criminal Intent. And there was this episode where this Jewish guy was accused of murdering his wife. But to tell you the story, you probably won't see it. It really wasn't him. It was his mother who actually killed his wife. But he had a mistress. And the initial assumption was that he killed his wife so he could hook up with his mistress. And I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. There's an actor named Vincent D'Onofrio. Is that name? You know what I'm talking about? He's funny on this show because he gets all up in people's faces when he's like asking questions. So you sure you weren't at the bar? And all my friends say, man, I would just stick that dude if he got it up close to me like that. Now he's usually intelligent and perceptive. So it's rare where somebody is basically more perceptive about something than him. But he goes over to Mistress' house and he's seeing that she has all these nice things. And he says, I see there's some benefits to having an affair with a married man. And she's like, beg your pardon? He's like, don't play stupid. He's like, you're having sex with a married man and he bought you this nice expensive sports car. You got all these nice trappings in your apartment. She says, wait a minute, did he tell you we had sex? He said, no, I'm just assuming you had sex because you're his mistress. She kind of shakes her head like, and this is where this title comes from. She said, detective, I'm gonna share something with you. You can get more out of a man by just offering him the possibility of sex than I'm paraphrasing words, but basically she said you can get more from a man by just giving him the impression that one day in the future he's gonna fuck you than to actually fuck him. And I used to work with women in Hollywood who would tell me that to some of the studios. They would come in bragging about it. They would say, yeah, I got this one guy, he's like paying half my car note. We haven't even like done anything with him. I'd be nosy and I'd say, wait a minute, come on there by me again. You got a guy paying half your car note and y'all ain't fucked. And they'd be like, yeah. I would say, who would be stupid enough to do some shit like that? They'd be like, Alan, you're a different breed. Like, you're straightforward. See, I would just end up having to reject you because you're so straightforward. But most guys aren't straightforward like you. Indirect. See, manipulative women, and I'll wrap up in the next 3 to 5 minutes, but manipulative women, they love, this woman on my show admitted this, they love indirect guys. A manipulative time waster rubs her hands together when she comes across an indirect guy. Because what these women ended up sharing with me, which I think I mostly knew already, but they confirmed it for me. They said, Alan, we got to school you because here's the deal with women. All we got to do is give a man, show our tits to a man, wiggle our ass, and basically give a man the impression that he's going to have one lucky day in the future where he'll be able to fuck us. And if that man is really attracted to us and really wants to fuck us really, really bad, we can get everything we want from him. There's this movie called Havoc with Anne Hathaway. Anybody heard of that movie? Havoc? There's a scene at the beginning of that movie where Anne Hathaway and her girlfriends are talking about that. They're in this restaurant and her friends say, Kylie, I want to get some drinks, but I don't have any money. And Anne Hathaway is like, shit, all you got to do is, I can't remember the exact words, but it's to the effect of, she's like, all you got to do is dick tease some of these guys and make them think they're going to be able to fuck you tonight and they'll buy you drinks all night. And the girlfriend's like, really? She says, go ahead and do it. Sure enough, girlfriend starts touching this guy's chest like, you're so handsome and you're so sexy. Would you mind buying me a drink? And he's like, sure. I'm sure every guy in this room knows one or more guys that have done that shit. Oh, I keep getting in front of this light. That I told you about the guy who did the Cancun thing, classic example. Guys, just because they think it's the possibility of sex out there, they'll flatter women, entertain women, do financial favors for women, buy women gifts. And the final thing, and I touched on this yesterday, the final type of time waster is what I call the woman who's looking for a male gossip buddy, male girlfriend, or empathetic listening ear. That's when a woman literally, she wants to talk to you about other guys she fucking. Tim, right? Imagine if some female said, Tim, hey, you got some time to talk? You're like, sure. She's like, there's this guy named Bruce, right? And I keep telling him not to slap my ass so hard when he's fucking me doggy style. And he's always slapping it. And then, like I always say, don't come in my mouth. And he just always comes in my mouth when he's like, I'm sucking his dick. Would you be just sitting there like, damn, that's a trip. What an asshole. Golly, if I was your boyfriend, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't slap your ass real hard and come in your mouth if you didn't want me to. See, you're such a sweetheart, Tim. You're so sweet. You ain't never getting the pussy, Tim. Never getting the pussy. But that dick asshole guy, he's getting the pussy. He's coming in her mouth. He's slapping her ass. And so, in conclusion, the thing with a lot of the onus is on you as a man. Don't be quick to call a woman a time waster if you haven't made your intentions clear. If you've been beating around the bush being vague and ambiguous, and a woman's being vague and ambiguous, okay, this is I guarantee my last story. Did I tell you a story about the woman who kept dropping her towel and picking it up? Did I say that yesterday? Well, it's in this book, and that's why I want to bring it up. Because she was one of the first women, and since then I've had a few other women that have acknowledged this, but she was one of the first women that acknowledged straight up why she didn't like mode 1 behavior, and why this represents why most time wasters don't like mode 1 behavior. A lot of them will give you their worst reactions to mode 1. Because I went to visit a friend in Chicago, and she wasn't there yet. We had agreed to meet, let's say, at 1 o'clock, and I got there at 1 o'clock, and she wasn't there, but her roommate was there who I hadn't met. And she said, what's your name? I said, Alan. She said, you know, your friend Erica's not here. She should be in about an hour, but you want to wait or you want to come back? I said, I'll probably just take off. She said, you can wait. And again, I said, nah, I'll probably just. She said, no, you ain't. So I said, okay, what the fuck? Now, she was attractive, but I wasn't going to hit on her because me and her friend had her roommate had an interaction. So I sit down, I'm reading through some magazines, and all of a sudden, first she tries to engage me in small talk, and everybody knows I hate what? Say it again. Say it again. She tries to engage me in small talk, and I was cordial for maybe 3, 4, maybe as many as 5 minutes, but I was basically like, okay, let me read this magazine, you do what you gotta do. So she says, I'm about to take a shower. Who just announces that? She's like real emphatic, like, I'm about to take a shower. I was like, okay. So she goes to the bedroom, she comes out in a towel, and then she just goes straight to the bathroom. Then all of a sudden she comes out the bathroom. Then she goes back in the bathroom. Then she comes out again. Then like, I think the third time she came out, she like accidentally lets it drop. And I knew she was waiting for me to be like, oh shit, damn girl. But I didn't do that. I was just like, do-de-dee-do. So then she does it a second time. I would give it a benefit of the doubt that it might have been an accident. But she lets it drop a second time. And that's when I was like, okay, time out. I said, when we fucking? Excuse me? You're excused. She says, I don't even know you. You're my roommate's friend. What do you mean, when are we gonna fuck? I said, so are you saying we fucking or are you saying we not fucking? She said, I just met you. No, we're not fucking. I said, then why you keep showing me your body then? Why you keep dropping your towel? Why you want me to see your pussy, your ass, your tits? I don't need to see that shit. And she get mad. She started fuming. She was like, then she went to the bathroom. Then finally she comes out. She says, I hate guys like you. I said, ooh, I mocked her. She got me more mad. I said, ooh, you hate guys like me. She said, no, really. I'm going to tell you, I hate guys who are just really direct and sexually straightforward. I said, why? And I, deep down, I knew where she was going to go. But again, I give her the credit. She was one of the first women at that time who acknowledged it. She said, because when you're that straightforward, you force me to basically either do one of two things, either reciprocate, which I always talk about, or what? Reject. And she hated that because she said, I said, that's how it's supposed to be. She said, no, you don't understand how women, we like to use our feminine charms. I said, well, so in other words, you're saying you like to dick tease us. I wouldn't quite put it like that. Anytime somebody says I wouldn't quite put it like that, that's what they really want to do. And she said, I like to toy with men. All my girlfriends do. We like to toy with you guys because you guys are so easy to fuck with. She actually said that. How you feel about being a woman saying we're easy to fuck with? She said, you guys are so easy for, we like to toy with you, play with you, basically give you the impression that you might have a chance of fucking us, even though we already know we're not going to fuck you. Classic example of a time waster. I said, well, look, if we're not fucking, I don't want to see your body. Go take your shower. I wouldn't fuck you anyway. You're attractive. I told her she was attractive, but I said, me and your roommate have a relationship, and I don't think that would be cool. And she's like, just like, ooh. And she went in. But I ended up quoting her in this book because, that, again, she represents the mindset. That's what manipulative time wasters want to do. They want to get your dick hard. They want you to flatter them, want you to entertain them, want you to spend money. But they know ahead of time, you ain't getting the pussy. Now, Kezia, she tried to argue with that. She said, no, a time waster is just a more challenging version of pretender. No, I've had challenging pretenders. But I've also interacted with time wasters. And again, time wasters, you ain't getting the pussy. If not 100% chance you ain't getting it, I'll say 99.9% chance you ain't getting the pussy from a time waster. And the way you'll usually expose that is by not doing any of those things they want you to do. As soon as you let them know you ain't gonna flatter them on a regular, semi-regular basis, not gonna entertain them on a regular, semi-regular basis, not gonna spend money on a regular, semi-regular basis, not gonna be their empathetic listening ear on a regular, semi-regular basis, they ain't gonna want nothing to do with you. They ain't gonna want nothing to do with you. So you can get that book on Amazon. Like I said, I've been getting a lot of great feedback. Matter of fact, a couple guys said they love this book more than my original Mode 1. I was like, really? They were like, yeah, man, possibility of sex, man. I didn't realize, the biggest compliment or comment I've gotten, guys say, I didn't realize the detriments of being indirect until I read your possibility of sex. I used to kind of be indifferent about direct versus indirect, but I realize now that when you're indirect, you open the door for manipulative time wasters to just waste your fucking time. And I said, exactly. So anyway, I've enjoyed you guys, the ones I've talked to both in here, out to lunch, out to dinner. Thank you.
Special scenarios, okay? You're talking a lot about ordinary sex. Yeah? Let's say you want a threesome, yeah? You like two ladies, yeah? You have a story, you walk up to two ladies, telling them both, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, because guys, it's funny. I don't want to tease any of my clients because I think, you know, how he says there's no question is a stupid question. But I've had guys literally ask me this. I'm not even exaggerating. Some guys will say, Alan, how do I go up to a woman and say hello? I'm like, you approach her and you say hello. And I know what they're really saying. It's just like what I talked about yesterday. Because guys will always say, well, Alan, I've been in a scenario where I was around this woman, I didn't know what to say. And I very quickly always say, that's bullshit. You always know what to say. But what you're really asking me is, what can I say or how can I say it that will elicit a very positive, enthusiastic response? And the thing is, there's this female coach named Marnie Wing. And she said some things I think I've disagreed with here and there, but she has this book out, I can't remember the name of it, but she said something I totally agree. She said, there's one section where she says, there is no right thing to say to a woman. A lot of guys want to look for that right thing to say. There is no, I've been walking down the street and I've been past a woman and said, hello, how's your day going? Now, wouldn't you think that's kind of an innocent, non-threatening? I've had women say, fuck off, creep. Now, I give them the benefit of the doubt. Their sister might have gotten in a car accident earlier that day, or they just might be cramping real bad. But I've said simple, innocent shit to women, and they've had a negative reaction to it. So that lets you know that there's no definite wrong things. Because a lot of things I say to women, some people perceive as the wrong thing to say. Like I had a woman argue with me on the message board. She said, Alan, you're not a great communicator. I said, oh really, why is that? She said, cause you say these crass things to women. You talk about like putting your dick in their mouth. You talk about fucking them. That's just not a good communicator. I said, you basing that on what? Of course, she was hesitant to respond. I said, are you basing that on anything like a credible interpersonal communication expert has ever said? Because I guarantee you, if you do any research on the advice from interpersonal communication experts, they say the most effective way to communicate anything is directly. If I need to use the bathroom, why would I say, hey, you ever had bladder problems? like, you ever been in a situation where you're on a roller coaster and your stomach starts feeling real funny and you're looking at me like, okay, what are you getting at? I'm like, and then you like start doing this thing like you're dancing and stuff, as opposed to me just saying, hey man, can I use your bathroom? But anyway, that's what I told her. I said, if you communicate something to that person and they're clear about what you want, they're clear about your desires, your interests, your intentions, that's an effective communicator. I don't care how provocative it may be, how you crash you might look at it to be. What's actually an ineffective communicator, and Brad Blanton talks about this in that book I mentioned yesterday, Radical Honesty. He said we become a nation of bullshitters. We just talk in bullshit code. And so she wants guys to talk about, you know, the boots and the blouse and the orange juice. She thinks that's a good communicator. I'm just the opposite. That's totally ineffective. If I want a woman to suck my dick, why am I talking about orange juice? What's effective about that? Anyway, but I want to segue. Guys will ask me, they say, Alan, how do you get two women to have sex with you? I say, you tell them you want to have sex with both of them. And they're like, really? No, matter of fact, I'm not going to say this guy's name. This one guy, he's not an A-lister or anything, but there's a guy in the Hollywood industry. He's been in some shit. He's been on some TV shows. And matter of fact, one or two women he slept with is pretty well known. I'm not going to say their name. But he had asked me that. He said, Alan, man, I've done a lot of the one-on-one shit I think I could do. He said, on that end, I've lived out my fantasies. But he said, man, I've never had a threesome. I said, never? He said, never. He said, how do you do that? I said, if you've already fucked a woman, you talk to her, let her know how much you enjoy fucking her, and then you just throw out that, hey, something to the effect of like, you know, would you have a problem if we added a third party, spice things up? And I said, if she immediately has, you know, a totally negative reaction, then hey, you let it go, or at least let it go with that particular woman. But if she seems even halfway interested, you know, you don't want to give her the impression that you're going to start favoring this other woman instead of her, but that you want to enjoy both of them. And he said, so you just be straightforward about it. I said, yeah, that's always the best way. Sure enough, man, he wrote me like 2 weeks later. He said, fuck, because of your advice and through Facebook and your book, Ooh, Say It Again, I scored my first threesome. I said, really? And he ended up giving me too much information. He said, matter of fact, one of the two women was blank. I said, damn, dude, you were in there. I mean, she's a gorgeous little thing. She's an actress. And he said, yeah, man, I just told her straight up, man, I wanted to fuck her. But I used to do that all the time, starting with college. I would be talking to a woman. Sometimes like women would say, they say, Alan, the way you look at my friend, you give me the impression you want to fuck her too. I said, because I do. And of course, sometimes they say, I can't believe you said that. I said, well, believe it. I want to fuck you and her. Let's make that shit happen. Well, I actually have always thought about it. I wouldn't be too adverse to it. You just got to put it out there. If you get rejected, so what? Anybody else got a question related to anything I said today, yesterday?
What are you going to say tomorrow?
Huh?
Questions regarding what you're going to talk about tomorrow?
Johnny, you crack me up, dude.